What are the emotions when they close that cage door and you're in a professional fight?
I really thoroughly believe that the sport of wrestling groomed us to be able to compete on such a high level. And I always try not to overthink it. To me, a fight is a wrestling match with kicks and punches. I tell you what, fellas, there ain't nothing like walking from that black curtain and going down to that cage, man. I tell people this all the time. On fight night, that walkout, I'm the lead singer, I'm the drummer, I'm the guitarist, I'm the backup vocals, I'm the sound guy, I'm the light guy. That's my stage, that's my concert that night. For one night, I get to be the musician. I get to be the rock star.
You're listening to the Born Primitive Podcast. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Born Primitive Podcast. How we doing, Big Tone?
We're here, Bear.
We getting it done today? It's Friday.
Yeah. Got a little speed squat session in this morning. So yeah.
Nice. Those bird legs, you got them going.
Hey, those chicken things. Got to add some meat to them.
Hell yeah. Well, hey, today's guest is a fun one, guys. We got Clay Guida. Many of you probably already know him, but Clay is known as the Carpenter, pro MMA fighter. Began his career in wrestling, made his UFC debut back in 2006, and quickly gained a pretty awesome reputation. For those that have seen his fights, know the energy and the pace and just the mentality that Clay brings to the octagon, which is why he's a fan favorite. I think something that blows me away and is worth calling out, Clay has over 60 fights, 36 of those in the UFC, and is number 4 in total takedowns. And then this is the one that blows me away. Number 5 in total octagon minutes. Tony, no, you already know it. Never mind. I was going to have you guess. This is just going to blow you away. 6 hours and 59 minutes in the octagon, which is just absolutely insane. I mean, even for guys that have wrestled, you know what I mean? Like, imagine in the octagon, 7 hours. That's fucking wild. So we'll get into that. But he also has a fight coming up in Vegas, December 7th, UFC 310, fighting Chase Hooper. So, Clay, welcome to the podcast, man. He's in sunny Florida, got the hair flowing, looking good, man.
Bear, Tony, thank you guys for the warm welcome. Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate the introduction, man. It's awesome to be with you guys today. Down here in sunny Florida, which was not so sunny Florida at 2 or 3 in the morning, as some of you guys may know if you've been paying attention to the news, things like that, media, Weather Channel. Hurricane Helen came and is ripping through Florida. Actually, is up in like Georgia, maybe Tennessee, maybe Kentucky by now. But we caught the small portion of it in Cape Coral and Fort Myers area was where we're at. So we dodged a bullet on this one. But yeah, now I'm just kind of hanging out here, and I'm going to just flip this camera on so you guys can see where I'm at, if this is cool. My dock is still underwater, as you guys can tell. So I think that kind of aligns a little bit with Born Primitive's brand.
That's right. No shoes, man. I love it. You're barefoot in water right now.
Right. And at this time, yesterday, the dock was almost completely submerged at, I think I told you guys earlier, 10 o'clock p.m., something like that. The stairs were covered. The water was halfway up in the grass, halfway up in our yard. And but all is well here. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. The fish are biting, hopefully. And we're getting pumped. And you guys just announced it. It's going down December 7th, UFC 310 at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. We're super jacked about that. We're taking on Chase Hooper. And we can't wait, man. We're super stoked about it.
Love it. Well, I definitely want to get more into that, but I think first, Clay, I just want to get the origin story of what got you into combat sports. I know you were a wrestler first, and then I think eventually I want to just get into the mentality that you have as a fighter and what's been able to keep you in the octagon so long. But how did it all start for you?
I wrestled at Harper Junior College in 2001 and 2. We won a national championship in 2001. We had a phenomenal team. I got to wrestle with some of the best wrestlers in Illinois, in Indiana. That's where it all stemmed from. I started wrestling when I was about the same height as this table, probably 6 years old.
Are you a Midwest guy?
Correct. Yeah. North of Chicago. We're way up by the Wisconsin border.
Right
about
on.
5 miles from the Wisconsin border. Yep. Up by the Chain of Lakes, Johnsburg, Illinois, small little village, farming community. Just blue collar little village, about 3,000 people. And there was nothing to do but play sports, and that's what my brother and sister and I did. And our friends, back seems like forever ago, but not for us. because you don't see kids out running around playing like they used to. You couldn't get us out of the backyard, out of our neighbor's yard, out of the pool, from playing pickup football games to baseball games, and just roughhousing, riding our bikes in the dirt track, through the woods, building tree forts, stuff like that. It's a thing of the past, unfortunately, in today's society. But that's what, we had the old 80s and 90s, upbringing, which we're super, super thankful for. Our parents provided that for us. And so started wrestling, doing intramurals when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and then started wrestling for Richmond Wrestling Club, and got to be around, just some like-minded individuals. Played football. I loved to tackle. I was middle linebacker. I was the smallest kid on the team. My jersey hung down to my knees. I was like one of the littlest kids out there, but coach knew I would tackle anyone, whether they had the ball or not. So they knew we were ferocious on the field, and that's just how we worked out, and that's how we practiced, on the football field and when we were in the practice room. So that's carried over to, college wrestling, to mixed martial arts. But it was just your typical Midwest, upbringing. Doing what my brother and sister did. They played sports. I'm the youngest of three. And, baseball, wrestling, and football. And we continued the wrestling route because, unfortunately, I didn't get any taller than 5'7" on a good hair day. And the Chicago Cubs weren't knocking on my door to play baseball, and neither were the Chicago Bears. I wanted to be Ryan Samberg and play second base, or I wanted to be Dick Butkus and play middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears. But that ship sailed a long time ago. So I took the wrestling route, man, which I loved.
Love it. Now, I don't want to divert us too much, but I have to ask because I understand you're a Bears fan. I'm a Bears fan as well. We're, as of recording this, we're 1-2 with absolutely abysmal 3 games. Are you optimistic? And is Caleb Williams the guy? What are you thinking, man?
Man, I tell you what, guys, I was at the home opener. We saw them play. We saw them go down 17 points. And they showed a lot of guts, a lot of heart to come back, and 24 unanswered points is pretty impressive, especially when Caleb Williams was throwing the football off the back of his his linemen's heads, off defenders' heads. He had no time back there. I'm a realist, man. Same thing with Justin Fields. I don't buy in. I don't believe in the hype. I believe in the athlete. I believe in a program that's put around them. And unfortunately, the Bears are not a quarterback-driven program. They never have been in our lifetime, correct?
No, it's brutal.
No, and it's tough to throw a guy in there who is such a phenomenal freak athlete and had so much success in college, and he gets thrown to the wolves. The line has never really been something the Bears have, had been their strong point. So I definitely believe in his abilities. We haven't seen a whole lot. We've seen some signs here and there, but safe to say 1-2 is not a good start, and they got. I think they're going to be up against it this weekend as well. So it's tough being a Bears fan, man. But we're still loyal to them all the time,
That's
man.
right, man.
Orange and blue through and through.
If you need to transition at any point, you can become a Steelers fan.
Yeah.
Which if you guys need some stability and consistency, come on over.
You guys have been more successful, and of course now you guys have Justin Fields, and you guys are 3-0. But I'm not willing to say like Justin Fields is your guy yet because. But he's in a better program, as Clay said. The Bears just do not set up their people for success, especially with quarterbacks. But we'll see, man. I'm loyal to a fault, so I'm just going to be getting my heart broken all fall and into the winter, and that's pretty much how it usually goes for me around this time of year with the Bears.
Hey, I gotta say, I love the Steel Curtain. I got a place to them in my heart, man. I got to see a playoff game out there in 2017 or 18. The Steelers and the Jacksonville Jaguars, man. I went out there. Obviously, wintertime, it was cold, but I tell you what, AFC playoff football is like nothing I've ever seen, man. Holy smokes. There's so much history, in the, around the Pittsburgh Steelers, their city, everything. And I got to go, going into the stadium and seeing these giant statues, of Franco Harris, of Mean Joe Green, Jack, Jack the Ripper, Jack Lambert, Terry Bradshaw, all these giant, huge, memorials for them and the tributes to them. It was incredible. The game didn't turn out, the way they wanted, but it was a shootout. It was awesome. And it's cool to see playoff football because I love sports, man. I try to go to, as many professional sporting events as I can, and to see, a city come together like that for, a playoff game. It's remarkable. Steel City, it's one of my favorite places to visit. I love it, man.
Love it. Love it. So, Clay, what got you into MMA after wrestling? How did you make that transition?
So I've, there was, a lot of things I didn't accomplish in the sport of wrestling. I set my goals high, and I didn't achieve them. So there was a lot of stones left unturned, and it's safe to say that because I didn't have much success in high school or college, there was still that desire, that burn inside it. Just it was upsetting, man. And I knew there was things I wanted to accomplish. So, like I said, I was on a team that won a 2001 national championship in junior college. We had a stellar team, and I got to really learn about the sport of wrestling even more by being around so many dominant wrestlers. I got to wrestle with some of my brother was on my team, Jared Carlin, one of my best friends, my buddy Wes, Nate Martinez, from Illinois. He's a couple times state champ, and his brother Israel Martinez. I got to wrestle with him afterwards, who I helped him coach at his wrestling club. Those guys taught me about wrestling and how to, I grew leaps and bounds in junior college. But I always wanted to wrestle at a university, and so I've told this story a bunch of times, man. How I started fighting. It all started at a strip club, man. I was going to watch my brother. He made his professional debut in end of July in 2003 at a place called the promotion was called the Silverback Classic. And I had just got off a fishing boat. I was working on a commercial fishing trawler in the Bering Sea. So before the show, The Deadliest Catch started, 1 year before, I was working out on the Bering Sea as a greenhorn, man. I did 2-3 month contracts, and I heard that my brother was doing this. This is back when they still called it NHB, which stood for No Holds Barred back then. And came back to watch my brother, in the summertime in the Midwest. He'd make his pro debut. So a bunch of buddies of mine, my dad, we took like three carloads, 3 truckloads of vehicles down there. And we're going to Ottawa, Illinois. We're talking like Hodunk, Central Illinois. There's nothing around except cornfields as far as I can see, 360 degrees. It's wild. And we're just driving, me and my buddies, and we guess it's back in the MapQuest days, we got this thing all unfolded, and we're driving down this country road, and we see this, this big billboard off in the distance. And as we get closer and closer, you can see like around the perimeter of it, you see like sparkles, and we got closer and closer. And next thing you see, the Silver Slipper Saloon, and then you saw a silhouette of a lady on the side, and we're like, holy smokes, this fight's at a strip club. This is gonna be awesome, man.
That's a good surprise,
especially in the middle of nowhere, Illinois. Middle of nowhere, Illinois. Clay, I'm from Indiana, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Like that shit.
You know how it is, man. Exactly. Yeah. You're driving around those cornfields, and if it's not the wind turbines, man, it's just cornfields as far as the eye can see, man. So we all got out of our vehicles, man. We were high-fiving each other, and it's hot out. It's 95 in Midwest summer, which you guys know about, man. And we walk in. We got our tickets. I remember my buddy still got the ticket stub. It says the Silverback Classic. It was like $8 admission, and we walk in, and some guy gets on the microphone. He goes, yeah, and he's got this hillbilly voice. He goes, we need a volunteer fighter for anywhere from, I don't know, 155 to 175 pounds. You think you got the balls enough? Come on up to the front table and sign up. And I looked at my buddies, and I said, I gave him the ticket stub back. I said, yo, that's for me, man. And my buddy's like, he sure is. And I walked right up there, and I signed my name. I walked up, and the guy's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm Clay Guida. My brother, Jason Guida, is the main event. He's fighting Adrian Serrano, who fought back in like UFC 8. And I'm signing the bio out, and the guy's like, oh, cool. He's like, you got permission to do this, young man? I'm like, from who, man? I'm 21 years old, 22 years old. Who would I need permission from? He's like, well, it was a non-sanctioned event. They shouldn't even throwing this thing, So he's like, you should probably get permission from your brother, get okayed by some of your dad, whatever. So I'm like, all right, cool. I go back. I asked my brother, I was like, yo, Jay, I'm going to go fight this dude. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, they need a volunteer fighter for this, for this fight. I'm going to do this. I'm going to wrestle this dude down and, kick his butt, whatever, wrestle him, put him in a half Nelson or something, That's all I knew was wrestling, dude. And my brother's like, no, dude, it ain't like that. He's like, you get kicked and you get punched in the face, dude. This is not like wrestling. He's like, if you want, when we're done, I'll take you. We'll go train someday and, see if this is even for you. I was like, yeah, whatever. I just walked off, took off, went over by my dad. I'm like, I went over by my brother's coaches, Joey Gilbert, who was the first 4-time Illinois state champ. Guy was amazing. He was All-American in Michigan, just an absolute legend. He was my brother and I's first fight coach. He still has Gilbert Grappling going on 25 years or something like that. Got fighters all over the country, all over the world. And I'm like, hey, Coach Joey Gilbert, how you doing? He's like, who are you? I'm like, oh, I'm Jason's brother. He's like, oh, you're the crazy kid that was on the boat in Alaska, right? I'm like, yeah, I just got back last week. I want to do this fighting shit. Excuse my language, guys. He's like, all right, did you get permission from Jay? I'm like, no. He said no. I'm like, he's like, I can't, approve it unless your brother says so, unless he says it's all right. I'm like, all right, cool. See you later, coach. I go up to my dad. I'm like, yo, dad, I'm gonna go fight this dude in there. They need a volunteer fighter. He's like, all right, you need your ass kicked, son. Go for it. So I finally,
good man.
I finally annoyed him. I annoyed my brother enough. I went up there and signed up. And literally an hour later, I was about to jump in there. And I remember I was big into skateboarding back then, so I used to wear like the sweatbands, the armbands on your hands, the Spitfire ones and the DVS ones. So I had those on both my forearms. I had a bandana around my head. And I had wrestling shoes on. I had the old Cale Sanderson Asics, the red, white, and blue Olympic ones that he had when he won the Olympics in 2000 or 2004. And I looked like the Ultimate Warrior, his bandana, rocking, wristbands all over myself. And I jump in there, and I'm fighting this dude who's got 8 fights. He's got 8 pro fights. I've never fought before, except maybe in a couple bars, maybe in a couple backyard brawls, And so we're standing there about to start the fight, and I'm in a wrestling stance, is all I know. And this guy's in a proper, like, more kickboxing MMA stance. He stands straight up, and he's looking at me. I could see in his face, like, is this dude serious? Like, what is wrong with this guy? And they're like, okay, here we go. Boom, bell, whistle blows, and we come out. And then I kind of stood up. I saw what he was doing. I was like, all right, cool. So then I remember I was growing up. I wanted to do karate. I always wanted to kick someone, man. So I stood up, and I remember I kicked him in the leg. I was like, this stuff's too easy, man. And we're moving around, and next thing you know, he throws a kick just like when Diego Sanchez kicked me in the mouth. This dude kicked me right across the teeth, and my whole mouth went numb. And it didn't knock me over, but I just remember exactly what my brother said before. An hour earlier, he's like, this ain't no joke, Clay. You get kicked and you get punched in the face, man. And I was like, holy crap. So my wrestling instincts kicked in. I shot a double leg. I took him down, and so he swept me right there. And I didn't know, he rolled me over. So in wrestling, you go to all fours, which is the referee's position, So I'm in the corner of my brother, Coach Joey Gilbert, and his brother, Danny Gilbert, John Gorecki, all my coaches from Gilbert Grappling back in the day. And they're yelling, go to your back, go to your back. I'm looking at him like, no way, man. I'm a wrestler. I ain't going to my back. I'm not trying to get pinned. I'm not trying to give it up back points, And next thing you know, the dude jumps to my back. And he puts in a rear naked choke, and, I tap out or whatever. That I kind of realized, so jumped up, high-fived the guy. We had a good laugh. My coaches jump in the ring. My brother gives me a beer. He's like, put this on your face, dummy. He's like, all right, you ready to take this shit seriously now? I was like, absolutely, man. So that was kind of it, man. It all started then. That's where I kind of got that buzz. That's when I got that, that college, fire that lit up inside to keep competing. So like I said, when it all started at strip club, man, and that's 21 years ago. And yeah, we never looked back since, man.
That is freaking awesome. And what makes the story even better is that you were a greenhorn on a boat in the Bering Sea, which for those who have obviously caught the show, that is no freaking joke. And then you roll in to some podunk strip club in middle of nowhere, Illinois, and sub in on no notice, even though you've never fought in your life. That's freaking awesome, man. What a good story. And, while it's a bit humorous, like it's also, I think, it validates like the mentality you've had, in your career, right? You signed up, no hesitation. You said, fuck it, let's go. And that's why you've had the career you've had, in my opinion. Like that, whatever is innate in you to make you make that jump with no hesitation, with no fear, that trait has carried you, man. So, I mean, that's freaking awesome to hear that story. I'm fired up.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? Like I said, had I done it differently, who knows what I've done if because most guys, they train and then they fight. They train for 3, 6 months, a year, and then they're like, okay, I'm ready to fight. Who knows? Had I gone that route, who knows if we'd be doing this podcast today? Who knows if we'd be doing this interview? You know what I mean? I might not have liked it. I might have thought about it too much, or maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed the training. I'm sure I would have, just because of the wrestling aspect that jiu-jitsu brings, the grappling, things like that. But, I think the spontaneity of it, man, it was like, all right, here we go. We always take on challenges. head on. And that's, I think, what we've always been, built on is don't shy away from a challenge. Just take the sucker and, knock that wall down, see what's on the other side of it. And I think that was kind of, like you said, kind of by accident. I tell people, yeah, I started fighting by accident, but, was it really by accident? I think there was something inside of us, we were meant to, entertain people. I was meant to be in sports in some facet in my life. And who knew it would still be continuing, almost 20 years later in the sport of mixed martial arts and wrestling combined.
What has kept you, and it's a question we often, especially high performers or individuals that are doing kind of extreme physical things, we always love to dive into, like, what is your fuel source? And we've realized some people it's fear, some people it's anger, some people it's passion. What would you say Clay Guida's fuel source is, and has it evolved over the last 2 decades as you've done 60 professional fights?
Man, I appreciate that question, and I've been looking at a lot of the people that you've had on, on your guys' podcast, and I always go back and think of the longevity of the Nolan Ryans, because baseball is like my first love until I started wrestling. Just an absolute phenom, and his longevity in the sport. I watched an interview on it, or I'm sorry, a documentary. It was called Facing Nolan, and I don't know if you guys have seen that one, but as this guy when he turned 40, he was also running his farm. A lot of people might not know that unless you know how much of a savage he was, and a businessman. He had a huge cattle farm in Texas. But when he was 40, they put him on a training regimen that was unreal. They said he was getting bigger, stronger, throwing faster, pushing more weight. They showed videos of this, I mean, Nolan Ryan, I feel like he looked like he was 60 when he was, in his mid 30s. It was crazy. And he was throwing the ball faster, and just his workout regimen was unmatched. And I mean, so I look at that. I look at the Tom Brady's of the world. What did Tom Brady play for 22 or 23 seasons or 21, something like that in the NFL?
Something like that. Yeah. Into his 40s.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just unheard of, man. So to me, being a an average wrestler, I hate to say, throughout high school, college records wise, we stepped up our game in mixed martial arts. With, like you said, we have like the fourth, I think, most takedowns, in the UFC, I think. And I gotta congratulate my boy Merab Joshvili on his championship. A couple weeks ago, we were there at the Sphere, and I have to congratulate him because at the time I had the most takedowns of active fighters in the UFC, and Merab that night surpassed me, dude. So I was super excited for him, and it was just kind of wild to see a young man who kind of similar upbringings as far as being in the trades, because I worked, I was, in the Chicago Carpenters Union. I built houses before I got in the UFC as well, besides fishing. But to see the videos and pictures he puts up of him in work boots, working on the, on job sites, to see him come into the UFC. I think he's only been in the UFC like 5 or 6 years, and this guy's already surpassed, my takedown record, which is just it's unheard of, and it just it's a testament to hard work and self belief and buying into the system. But I always look at those guys, and I use, like I said, the Nolan Ryans. I'm trying to think who else played forever. In sports, it's let's see. Oh, I mean, Randy Couture. How about that? One of my idols, a friend of ours, that we watch forever. He comes out to our fishing trips, and just to see the longevity he had in wrestling, and then was able to come into the mixed martial arts in the UFC and fight till he was 49 years old. I use those guys as examples because they are the epitome. They're the top echelon of the definition of longevity in the sport. And those guys, obviously, I don't want to put myself in the same name as those guys, because those guys all won championships. They all Hall of Famers. They've won so many accolades. I'm still chasing a damn takedown record of the most fights in the UFC. But to me, it's like, if those guys can do it on that level of competitiveness for that many years, dude, I can fight till the damn wheels fall off, as long as my body continues to feel good like it does, and the mind is strong and still determined, and the passion for the sport, which it still gets me fired up thinking about competing, and the process, the training part of it. It's that's really the catalyst to it, and that's what ignites me. That's what fires me up, is knowing that we can still compete at the highest level, with some of these big names, and we can go out there and still put on a show. But yeah, we're built to last, and that's kind of always been, I think a wrestler's creed. That's what wrestlers are built on. Is you might beat us, but you're not gonna break us down. You're not gonna hold us down. We're gonna get back up. We're gonna run right back to the middle of that wrestling mat. We're gonna get right back to the middle of that cage, and we're gonna make it a dog fight, man.
Yeah, and it's obvious. I mean, just watching you over the years and even hearing your stories about working on a crab boat and also building houses, like resiliency seeps through just even when you're sitting here talking, both passion and resiliency. But are you somebody like that? That of course is a trait most wrestlers embody. I grew up in Southwest Pennsylvania, wrestled until I was 13, and then I'm 6'7", so I had to give it up at some point, which was probably my dad's most disappointing day because he was a huge wrestler. But definitely that's a trait that you just see come through in wrestlers. But for you, you've put in now a 2-decade career in the UFC. Did you have to get super focused on things like nutrition, like your training performance, or were those things like were you able to kind of just bulldog it and be like, no, like I'm going to maintain kind of my way of doing things, or to maintain your longevity, did you really have to get into kind of or even get a little more technical with using technology, sleep, nutrition, or have you been able to kind of maintain what you've been doing from the start?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a combination of both. At first, when you start in a professional sport, we don't have a whole lot of resources, that we have, that are, they're pretty expensive, or we don't have them yet. You know what I mean? As far as the recovery that people have now. Um, I remember I would work out, 3 times a day, and I'd be driving back and forth from Northern Illinois down to Gilbert Grappling. So actually, I'll take you through a typical day back then. This was still when my brother and I had started fighting, and we were not in the UFC yet. So my brother was in the uh, Masons Union, Bricklayers Union, whatever, and I was just getting the Chicago Carpenters Union. So get up 4:30, out the door, drive an hour to the job site. I would sleep in the back of my truck. I had a little Chevy S10 Durango, and I had a cap on it. So I would sleep there. I would get there long before everybody. I would sleep for about an hour because I wanted to beat the traffic in the morning. Sleep in there. Next, I had my alarm set for, 6:45, get up, form would be pulling up. We roll our tools out, work a full day, whether it be the freezing, cold winters, or the freaking super hot Indian summers where it's 90, 95 degrees and it's 105 at the heat index. And after that, we would drive down to the road, or we would drive to Harper College, which is where my brother and I wrestled at junior college. We would go wrestle with the team for an hour, wrestle live with them. And then from there, we would jump back in the truck and we would drive down to Mokina, Illinois, or Tinley Park, Illinois, which is where Gilbert Grappling was at. And we would go wrestle. That's when we would have our MMA practice. So we would get there at like 7:30 at night and sitting in traffic, man. A lot of times my brother and I would switch off because he would get done working, laying bricks, and I would get done swinging a hammer. So either he would sleep in the back of the the pickup, and I would drive, or vice versa. We would just switch off because we were still beat from our day, and then we got to rally, go practice at 7:30, train till like 9:30, and then drive back home another hour and a half or 2 hours. So it was just kind of that good vicious cycle. We didn't know any better. All my brother said was, "Hey, we're going to train at Joey Gilbert's at Gilbert Grappling with Danny Gilbert and the best wrestlers and the best fighters in the state of Illinois." We didn't care about any of these other gyms. We dominated all these other gyms that were local in the Chicagoland area, in Indiana, in Minnesota, in the Midwest. We beat them all. Whenever our team had to fight those guys, we would smash them because all we knew was that wrestler's mentality, that wrestler's grind. And so that's what we were sold on. But yeah, fast forwarding, but as when I fought in Strike Force, we won that title there, and fighting all over the world, and then we got into the UFC. It was still all I knew. Was all that we did. Drive all over, train our asses off, go back at night and sleep. And I noticed, you kind of get banged up a little bit, but it was just always, kind of almost like that meathead mentality. We don't know any better. It's not broke. Shit, don't fix it. I don't do no doctor stuff. The only time that we went to a doctor is when we'd have to do our pre-fight medicals for a big fight, whether it was a Strike Force or the UFC. Doctor said, okay, all the blood work came back negative, everything checked out. Cool, you're in the cage. But as the sport evolves and you see all these other phenomenal athletes like the George St. Pierre's, the Anderson Silvas, the training that these guys that, at Team Alpha Male were doing, which is where, I train at the guys at Jackson's, which is where I trained at for 5 or 6 years, they were, they had different recovery systems, so I kind of, started, doing those. I started doing a lot of kettlebells, man, which has been a staple in our training. You guys know, I'm sure you guys do a lot of kettlebells in your training as well. Just implementing those is that's so, functional to mixed martial arts, to your daily, you do daily chores, things like that, heavy lifting, how to, lift with your, with your legs, not your, in your lower back, not your back. So it was just, putting those things together. And then once we had more resources available to us, like a nutritionist, I did hot yoga a lot. It's super good for recovery, super good for breathing. You lose weight when you're in there. Um, Massage therapy, doing the cryo freeze chambers, um, chiropractic care. Once we had those resources available to us, I utilized them, and I still do now. And that's what I think, has given me the longevity, just evolving in how we recover. And I didn't used to do that as much. And during some camps, you'd be a little bit more sore than that, than other times, the other weeks in training. And when you're doing an 8 or 10 or 12-week training camp, whatever it may be, there's lulls in it, there's ups and downs in it as far as how your body feels. But we always want to train 1,000 miles per hour, because that's all we ever know, and how we wrestle and how we fight.
And it sounds like you found the right, because even personally, both Bear and I both played. I played college baseball. He played college football, and what I've seen as that space has evolved is that you get people who almost get too neurotic about it, where it sounds like you were kind of the opposite. You're just a natural fucking hard worker, resilient dude, and then eventually you start integrating those things. Whereas I watch and even see it now, I used to do a lot of like private baseball lessons and stuff, is kids at like 19 just getting obsessed with recovery. And it's like, hey, that's good, but you're missing the biggest chunk of the pie, which should just be like pure ambition and hard work. And then those little things should just be additions. So yeah, it sounds like you did it kind of in a more sustainable and also just way that actually makes sense of like, hey, the bread and butter of what I'm doing is just working my ass off. And then these little things are just little icing on the cake, as far as just making you feel a little better and operate a little better.
For sure. And you guys know how it is, training at those programs. Where'd you guys go to school at?
I went to West Virginia University.
Mountaineer.
Yeah, you Mountaineer. Yep.
Awesome, man. So yeah, I mean, you guys probably had a lot of great facilities, at your disposal, and they pushed them, with the personal trainers, with the extra coaching, maybe the diet and things like that. So it's awesome to have those things, and that you can utilize. And heck, we took full advantage of them.
Well, dude, I love that story you're saying, getting up at 4 and driving through Chicago traffic. I know how that is. And you're sleeping on the job site, working your butt off all day. And then you got 2 training sessions with more driving, on 80, 94, probably dealing with all that shit. And then you're probably dragging your ass into the house at 10 o'clock at night, and you're up at 4 again. And I think, like, especially in today's society, I think so many people are expected things to be given to them. And there's just a complete disregard for what it really takes to be elite in anything. And that what you just told us, like, it just summarizes it to a T, man. I mean, look at the pace you were running at, but that's all you knew, right? That was that blue collar mentality you have. And I love the wrestlers, man. Y'all are freaking hard dudes. And, especially the Midwest wrestlers, they're these Midwest dads, dude. They got their little sons in there when they're 5 years old getting after it. And you guys are just built different, man. That's why whenever I'm watching UFC, whenever they say like their background, I always root for the wrestler guys. You know what I mean? Because just a little partial to that, but just, man, it's super, it's mad respect for the path you took in the early days to set yourself up for a prolific career in the UFC. And I just love to hear that, man. That's good shit.
We always push the limits, whether it's safe or not, but that's all we knew. So another funny story off of that, a couple weeks later, I didn't want to be falling asleep behind the wheel again. And there's another long late night of practice. And I was driving by like Schaumburg, Illinois, and we were building a subdivision over there. And my brother went home. I was like, yo, dude, peace out. I'm heading over here. So I just went to the actual job site that I worked on earlier that day, that we've been working on that week. Drove to the job site, pulled in the gravel parking lot, jumped in the back, slept in the slept in the cab of the truck again. Woke up at like 6:30, 6:45 in the morning, and it was summertime, so it was still nice. And I hadn't showered yet, so I went over to the side of the house, and there was a spigot on the side. The plumbing was already working, so I'm sitting there showering next to the house, doing my thing, and I'm in my underwear. And I look back, and my foreman Jeff pulls up in the van, GW Thiel. I look back, he rolls the window down. He's like, Guido, what are you doing, dude? I'm like, cat. I'm like, boss, sorry, man. I didn't get home last night. The shower, I just rinsed it off, man. He starts laughing. He's like, dude, you are wild, man. He's like, all right. He's like, put some pants on, dude. There's neighbors walking their dogs in the part of the subdivision, man. So, but yeah, that's all we knew. Little things like that. Just kind of add to what I call the nomad lifestyle.
Clay, how is I mean, with a fight coming up here, by the time this airs, it'll probably be right around a month out.
Okay.
How has the way you prepare changed over the last 2 decades?
Man, it's what people say, new fight, same mentality, new camp, same mentality. It's always it's pushed the pace on these guys. We don't, we always have a reserve tank in the cage. People know we're not the most tactful fighter, we're not the most technical fighter, anything like that. Sometimes we're exciting. Sometimes our stuff works, sometimes it doesn't, but they always know with a Clay Guida fight, it's going to be entertaining and it's going to be 1,000 miles an hour because we don't push down the gas pedal. We lay on that gas pedal. We push it, the balls to the wall every time. And we come at these guys, it's ugly, with the burping in between rounds and things like that. But people always know they're going to knock them down, drag them out, fight. And so that's the mentality I've always brought, to the fight, to our training, is just always, lay on that gas pedal. And that's what we tell to our wrestlers, that we help coach. Is if you can, get these guys exhausted, your chances, of winning and making them make a mistake, they're going to go through the roof. A lot of times these guys might be a better wrestler, more technical, have a little more skill set. But if you can start to get them, to breathe heavy, you control the tempo, you control the scoreboard, you control the pace of the wrestling match, the pace of the fight, you control the clock, you control everything about that, what's going on the wrestling mat, what's going on in that octagon or in that cage. And that's where I think the wrestling mentality has always excelled. I tell these guys, I don't think about it. I tell my wrestlers, don't think about it. You think about getting tired, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get tired. If you don't think about it, you put it in the back of your mind and you think about how you're going to just torture this guy. That's going to carry you through, the cage. It's going to carry you through that wrestling match. I tell them there's no substitute for hard work. That's it. Is go all in on everything. Go all in on your coaching and your training systems and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty along the way.
Yeah, that burping in between rounds is nuts. Where does that come from?
People ask me all the time. I don't know what it is. I have the same meals all the time. On fight day, I think it's the adrenaline. I eat bananas, throughout the day with the training. But I think it's just, I think it's the excitement. And when we burp, we know the fight's going well, man. Everything's all right. Usually pretty close one at that point.
Clay, what is the most memorable fight you've ever been in and why?
I'll give you a couple examples because we get this one quite a bit, and most of the time it's usually one where I haven't got my hand raised. Everybody always remembers the kick heard around the world, the kick heard around Las Vegas. The Diego Sanchez mauling brawl, that we got in, and for a few different reasons. As soon as the bell rang, I did exactly what my brother and my coach just told me not to do. They told me not to back up. What did I do in the fight? I walked right back to the cage, man, and Diego just started pounding on me, kneeing me, elbows, knees up the middle, just cracking me. And we were like in, survival mode. Our wrestling instincts kicked in after I got kicked in the face and, almost blacked out. I got up and I got a takedown on him. And most guys probably wouldn't have gotten up from that, kick to the head. There was a moment in the fight. I remember he was, and this was what Josh Rosenthal, who was the referee, he came up to me like the next, UFC 100, which was like a week or two later. So I went back out to Vegas because UFC had us out there. He comes up, he's like, Guida, dude, I can't. He was like speechless. He's like, that was one of the wildest fights I ever got to referee, let alone witness, let alone ever see this and that. He's like, dude, there was one point in the fight. He's like, I don't know if you remember this. He's like, Diego was uppercutting you. You were up against the fence. He was hitting you with knees and uppercuts, and your mouth guard went flying out. And I remember you looked over him and you kind of smiled and you put your finger up for a second, like waved it off, not to like stop the fight, to go pick up my mouth guard. He's like, that's the moment I knew you were just out of your mind. Just crazy. And you just kept fighting and you ran after him and took him down. And so, yeah, little bits and pieces of that fight is, just to a testament to, man, no matter what the judges' scorecards say, and we were getting 10-7 in that fight, I think, at one point, but you're never down and out, until the clock stops, until the whistle blows, until the ref stops the fight, until it goes to the judges, whatever it is, man. So that was always a memorable one. And because that was the first time I ever got stitches, ever get cut. I got 13 stitches. I literally, the letter Y, it was like this and like this right down my face. So that was pretty gnarly. I had to walk around with some stitches all over Vegas for a couple days after that. The UFC debut is always a pretty memorable one. And that one, we got our hand raised. It was really, really cool. We fought in UFC 64. It was, we were the second fight of the night when Rich Franklin and Anderson Silva had their first fight. So that's going back a ways, back in 2006. Actually, yeah, October 14th will be our 18th year in the UFC. So that one's coming up pretty quickly here. But that was cool. We took this dude down after I almost got my arm broken the first or second round. He had me in an arm bar, and this thing almost snapped. So I, fought it off. And then in the second round, we came back and we just let the dog out, man. We just came after him, tired him out, took him down, hit him with the caveman punches, and took his back and choked him. And we got submission of the night. We got a nice bonus, and we got a cool glass trophy, chisel trophy from Tap Out back in the day when they were around. That was really cool. But I think the other most memorable was another big one in our career is when I fought Josh Thompson in Strikeforce in 2006 for the lightweight title and for the world championship. And that was huge because we were, just some unknown Midwest kid. I had a really good record at the time. I think we were like 18-1 or 18-2, something like that. So we had a really good record, and he was well known. He was ranked like third in the world at that time. He was fighting in Pride. He had fought Yves Edwards. He was in UFC already. So he was a very well-known West Coast fighter, and they were looking for a tomato can. They were looking for a guy with, with a good record, maybe not a lot of name recognition. So they brought us in. We fought at the Shark Tank in San Jose, and which is his home. That's where he's from. He's from San Jose. So we kind of rained on his parade. Josh and I were cool today, but at the time it was there was some bad blood there because I came and beat him in a 5-round fight, and I beat him like every single round, and it was almost like the Ivan Drago Rocky fight, where I think it was Rocky 3, where he went out to Russia. He went into the lion's den, and everyone was booing him. And as the fight went on, they started kind of seeing the tide change, seeing the shift. And at the end of the fight, people were cheering us on, even though there was only 2 people in the crowd. My cousins, Andy and Chris, they gave us nosebleed tickets way up the top rafters, man. And they were about the only people cheering early in the fight. And then we kind of won the crowd over a little bit. And Chuck Norris came in the cage and put a championship belt around my waist. So I always got to meet finally got to meet one of our childhood heroes, and that was kind of cool. And so those 3 fights are awesome. But a lot of times I always go back to the fights in Indiana. I got to fight King of the Cage, or I fought in bowling alleys, in Des Moines, Iowa, called the Valor Banquet Hall or Valor Ballroom. Jeremy Stevens was like 17 or 18 years old. I was 24. Fighting in a bowling alley. I fought in a meat market up in Rochester, Minnesota one time. Like, just the wildest places when you're fighting in these regional promotions, trying to get to, we were trying to get to the big show. That was it. My brother and I, we wanted to fast track our way to the big show, to the Super Bowl of mixed martial arts. So, but yeah, all those little fights, they add up to, why we're here today.
Clay, I'm curious, just from a mentality standpoint, when you obviously you're warming up in the back, you're waiting to come out, and then you get your walkout song, and I'm sure that's just pure adrenaline, and you're fired up. What are the emotions when they close that cage door and you're in a professional fight, and the dude across from you has been training just as much as you? Because I'm kind of wondering, like, there has to be some fear. Now, some guys, like, the Mike Tysons have just admitted it. Yeah, I was so scared every fight. That's why I fought like I did. But obviously, everyone's wired a little bit different. So when they shut that cage door, what is going through your mind?
Man, I get asked that quite a bit, from fans, from family, from our wrestlers that we help coach, from teammates, people all over. And you know what? I answered a couple of different ways. I really thoroughly believe that the sport of wrestling groomed us to be able to compete on such a high level. the nerves from wrestling 1,000 matches or, 500 some matches when I was a kid, throughout high school and junior college, we'd seen it all. We'd been through the fire so many times, and I always try not to overthink it. To me, a fight is a wrestling match with kicks and punches. You know what I mean? So many people put so much emphasis on a fight, of this technique or this skill or this strategy and this and that. Dude, at the end of the day, it's a dog fight. You're gonna have to get in that kennel, and all like Mike Tyson said it the best. You can have the best game plan ever until you get punched in the face. That game plan goes out the window. So I always kind of use that similar mentality a little bit. But I tell you what, fellas, there ain't nothing like walking from that black curtain in that locker room or in that hallway and going down to that cage, man. Because son of a gun, unless the power goes out, unless a hurricane happens, unless there's a shortage of power, whatever it may be, or the roof rips off of that thing, you're getting in a fight. It's that simple, man. And that minute leading up to the fight, in 2 minutes or however long your walkout is, mine sometimes can get a little bit long when we're coming out to Pantera or Metallica or Sublime or Pepper, whatever it is, man. It's about to go down. And people ask me, how is the walkout? How is the fight? And I always tell them, take the 5 most badass concerts you've ever been to and wrap them into one minute experience. Because who knows, a fight might only go that long, but could go 15 minutes. But just that walkout and coming out and seeing my mom, seeing my dad in the crowd, our buddies, our teammates, our family friends that flew in from Chicago, that came in from California, flew there from Florida, drove there from Indiana, came on, skateboarded. Some of my buddies would come, in town, wherever they were at. You know what I mean? We had some wild Guida Mafia stories, man. People rolling up in wheelchairs to our fights, like the craziest stuff. And seeing them in the crowd, it makes it all worthwhile. There's nothing like being able to point out your friend. He might be like in the risers. He's like 20 rows up, but you connect with him and he sees you see him and you're pointing, you give him the horns, or you see him cheering and he's grabbing his buddy and they're high-fiving, and you know what I mean? One of your girlfriends is in the crowd or something like that. And there's nothing like it. And that it fuels the fire. Talking about having people behind you chanting your name, pounding their feet on the ground, and Dan, that's what it's all about. A lot of times, it's probably more exciting than most of my fights, the walkout, because like I said, we get to walk out to some pretty badass rock, man, whether it's Motley Crue or Skid Row or Metallica or whatever it is. We try to change it up for the fans all the time, or, Foo Fighters or whoever it may be, man. But you know what? When you can own the crowd, you own the tempo, you own the cage. And I tell people this all the time. On fight night, that walkout, I'm the lead singer, I'm the drummer, I'm the guitarist, I'm the backup vocals, I'm the sound guy, I'm the light guy. That's my stage, that's my concert that night. For one night, I get to be the musician. I get to be the rock star.
That's freaking awesome, man. Speaking of walkout songs, have you picked a walkout song yet for the next fight?
It's still in the works, my man. And guess what? You guys will all know December 7th
You
in
should
Vegas,
do
on pay-per-view.
Metallica Fade to Black.
Oh,
That would be badass.
that
Can you
was-
imagine the
that was
beginning?
badass.
Oh man.
No.
All right, I'm just gonna put that birdie in your ear, and
Yeah.
when I tune in, I'll be waiting for it. Well, that's freaking awesome, man. I love the mentality. I guess what's if you were looking into a crystal ball, the rest of your career, do you still have a lot of gas in the tank, or is there a milestone you want to reach, or are you just gonna keep rocking and rolling until you don't have that beast inside you anymore, and you're content to kind of hang it up?
Yeah, you know what? Same thing. People ask me it all the time. Whether it's friends, family, the people that care for us the most. Wrestlers, fans. What I tell them, man, this our gas tank, our reserve tanks are set on full. I'm 42 going on 22. I'm in better shape now than I was 21. I'm in better shape now than I was 25. The body feels great. I'm sharp. We're in a phenomenal shape. The body feels good. Shoulders, knees, everything's good to go. And I still got that passion to compete. There's nothing like, a new challenge. And that's what we've always, kind of prided ourselves on, is us being the underdog in sports, whatever it was. We were always the littlest, not the fastest. Not the biggest, not the strongest, but we always had the most grit. And we were always one of the toughest guys, on the mat, in the wrestling room, on the football field, the baseball field. And I still have that same old school mentality. When it's time, I'll know when it's time to hang them up. But in the meantime, man, we're still running this thing full throttle. And then when I do hang it up, we're gonna go fishing and continue to run their Gills and Thrills with Guida fishing guide service and take people out and show them a great time on the water and bring them around and get to do awesome things that we get to do, because that's where our passion lies as well.
Love it, man. Since we're talking fight talk, I want to get your opinion. So one of our athletes is actually Stipe Miocic, and he fights coming up against John Jones at Madison Square Garden. And I went last year, but unfortunately, John, of course, tore his pec, and that got postponed. And a couple of legends going at it. So obviously, experts are saying John Jones is the overwhelming favorite. Some calling him the GOAT. Do you think there's any way Stipe can beat John? And if so, how does he get it done?
Man, I tell you what, I think it's safe to say John Jones is the Michael Jordan of mixed martial arts, of the UFC. He's the greatest to ever grace the octagon, to grace the sport. And it's amazing, even when he has time off, he comes back and it's like the dude hasn't missed a practice. He hasn't skipped a day. He hasn't, been out of the cage. There's no such thing as ring rust with John. But you talk about, phenomenal hard worker and Stipe Miocic, and arguably, and I don't care what anyone says, he's the greatest, greatest UFC heavyweight of all time, right? He's defended it the most, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. I think he's got six title defenses, I think. Yep. He is the winningest heavyweight of all time.
Yep. So you talk about a guy that's gritty, that always is sharp in there. He always has a great game plan. And what he did against Francis Ngannou in that first fight, man, when he got cracked and he was forced to take this guy down for 25 minutes and lift up that giant and slam him and take him down over and over and over. That was a feat in itself. And you can never count a guy like Stipe out. You talk about super well-spoken, they're constant professional, just a phenomenal, human being, a firefighter, a man's man, just a badass all around, just the true American. I tell people all this all the time, man, because fighters ask me, I'm getting in a fight and this and that, I'm looking for a part-time job. I said, hey, if it's good enough for the UFC champ or the former UFC champ, Stipe Miocic, to be a firefighter and still go back to the firehouse, man, it's good enough for anybody. You talk about an awesome family to have there at the firehouse. You can still work out there. You can train. You get 3 or 4 days off. You can go be around your family. You can go train when you're not working, obviously. If it's good enough for the champ, it's good enough for you guys. So I just feel like, I love his demeanor. I love how positive that guy is. And I love he's just a real down-to-earth guy. So that one, John makes, he makes it look easy in there, but I think this is going to be one. It's going to be a little bit closer fight maybe than people think. Or John might just go in there and finish in the first round. But I would like to see both these guys because they're two of my favorite fighters. John's a teammate of mine for years at Jackson's, but friends with Stipe for years. It'd be cool to see an old school 5-round heavyweight fight. See the two baddest dudes in the world literally go tooth and nail and fight to the end, because you don't see that, I feel like, a lot in a lot of the heavyweight fights as much anymore. Once in a while you'll get one that might be kind of a snoozer if it goes 5 rounds, but these guys have all the technique, they have all the veteranship, they have all the experience to really go out there and put on a show. And this might be one of the most sought after fights, or a fight that people have been wanting to see. How many years are we talking now? 3 or 4. When they've been talking about John coming up to heavyweight for years now, and then there was the injury. So this is one the whole world's looking forward to.
Hell yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. Anyone's fight at heavyweight, man. It only takes one when you're hitting that hard. So
for sure.
Well, Clay, hey man, this has been freaking awesome. You're an absolute legend. We appreciate you taking some time to come on the podcast. Particularly, you freaking had a hurricane ripping through your yard last night. So good luck at UFC 310, December 7th in Vegas. We'll absolutely be tuning in. I'll be waiting for that walkout song, and it will be rooting for you, man. You got allies here over at Born Primitive.
Guys, Bear, Tony, thank you guys so much for having me on. I appreciate it. What an honor, and hopefully we'll get you guys. Maybe we'll see you guys in the crowd in Vegas, man, in December 7th.
Love it. Sounds good, brother. Good luck with everything.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Later.